righty, everybody. It's time for a 1 hour therapy session known as the Sunday Smash, alongside the managing editor of Warchant.com, Ira Schafel. My name is Tom Lang. We welcome you to Sunday Smash, where we're talking about a 4-3 football team, a football team in Florida State that lost last night 34-28. On the one hand, you could say that score is not indicative of the way it played out in the second half. On the other hand, you could say, outside of a terrible situation before halftime and after halftime, that seems about right. You choose your own adventure, everybody, and we're going to take that adventure together. Ira, how's it going this evening? And go ahead, man. Fire away with your opening thoughts, as we've had a day now to kind of just take in what happened last night.
I'm good, man. Yeah, it's just such a weird game, and it didn't really play out the way I expected. I didn't think that they would be able to run the football the way they did, and they did. I thought the offensive line played really well in stretches, especially run blocking. I thought the backs ran hard. I mean, Lawrence Toafili, if you think about where he a year ago to where he is now, man, that guy has become a really nice weapon at running back. Trey Benson ran hard. Jordan came up with some big runs when he had to have it. So that all was like very surprising to me and a good sign for this football team. On the flip side, I never expected the defense to have as many busts and to not play as competitively as I would have thought. Clemson's offense is not – here's what's weird about Clemson's offense, and it bared out in that game. When you look at them throughout the course of the season, their total offensive numbers have not been very good. But situationally, they've been very good. They're great in the red zone. They're great in scoring, but they're not great at just moving the ball up and down the field. So I really felt like, if Florida State's offense didn't have any costly turnovers where you gave them a short field, I thought, and if you had to make them drive 70, 80 yards, I like Florida State's defensive chances. But their first two touchdowns were 70-plus yards, and converted some tough third downs, and then, they score on busts, wide open touchdowns. I mean, I still don't think DJ. Nope. I mean, look, they do a great job. I think they do a great job of not asking him to do too much. He's not making a lot of contested throws. He's not a guy that is, and so they're not asking him to do that. But Florida State kind of gave him a couple easy throws, and that's to me that's what really put you behind the eight ball when that catastrophe happened at the end of the half. So situationally, I thought Florida State has not been a very good team for most of the season, and it's kind of come back to haunt them. And Clemson's a very good situational team, and so I just think it's a weird game in that it some things played out the way you might have expected, but some things didn't.
No, I totally agree about the running game. You're averaging about 6 yards a carry, and it wasn't all because of 3 explosive plays and then a bunch of 1s and 2s. I mean, there was a lot of consistent gashing. I mean, I'll use that term, gashing. Clemson doesn't give up runs like that, I mean, to anybody the last few years as a program. So that's the impressive part. But you're right, Ira, that it's a complicated game to break down, because I think the blunder of the second half of NC State clouds everything, at least from the fan base's perspective. Right. There's a sour taste in everybody's mouth about the way that game finished. And so you're carrying over anger or frustration into the Clemson game. So anything that goes wrong is just kind of magnified or increased exponentially. And that's clouding some of the discussion, as Joel Davis already has made his appearance in the chat. Thank you, Joel. It was a pleasure to see you yesterday at Hotel Indigo.
Yeah.
Our teams have always quit in those situations the past few years. Love the heart of this team. Things are turning around. Great seeing you guys. Great to see you as well, Joel. Yeah, I would agree with that. Now, the one thing I'll say is I too am tired of saying this team doesn't quit. That's now their identity. They're poor in situations a lot of times, Ira, and that's fair. But I don't think that replaces or takes precedent over the argument that Florida State in 2022 is far better than it was in 2021, which that team was far better than it was the year prior. There is improvement here, and you can see it, and it's tangible, but they're not paying it off for themselves. In some ways, Ira, they're doing the hard work, and then when there's a chance to take advantage of all the hard work they're doing and all the adversity they're overcoming, they come up with crazy problems. Crazy.
Well, yeah, and I kind of wonder if it's more like, you say it's the hard work. It is, but it's also like the fine tuning is the problem that they're struggling. Like they're getting all the materials in place for the house, but maybe the details are not getting done right. And that's what, you look at some of the situations in that game where, it's you get to midfield after they kick the field goal. So I know Mike Norvell wants to score before halftime because he knows they're going to get the ball to start the second half. So you give up those 3 points. You want to answer. You get the nice run by Tofield. You get out to midfield, and on first down, there's a miscommunication or something on the line, the tight end, and you that blows up the play. Now it's 2nd and 12, and this is a decision I think if I'm Mike Norvell, I'd want to have back. I don't think you could drop Jordan back for a traditional passing play in that situation. It's 2nd and 12. They're going to pin their ears back. You don't. To me, it's more important that Clemson not score than you do score in that situation because you just can't have a strip sack there. It reminded me of kind of like late in the Miami game and when DeAndre Francois fumbled on a strip sack. It's like that was the one thing you couldn't have happen. And I felt like that in that situation, it wasn't like Clemson. Again, Clemson's not an offense where you've got to just be able to run up and down the field against them. Okay, they're up 3, and if they get the ball to start in the second half, maybe they go up 10, but maybe they only go up 6.
Yeah.
Dropping him back there and risking the opportunity with that pass rush to give a strip sack, I think that was a costly mistake. So some of this is on players, and I think some of it's on the coaches as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that all of the above have to grow and get better.
Yeah.
The ranks have to be more talented and deep here in Tallahassee, and that's part of the thing where if you're in a position to win on the road against a top 15 team like NC State, go ahead and do that because then recruits are more apt to saying yes to you, or transfers are more apt to say yes to you as a program. And you could, those are the fruits of your labor. But then on the field for the players themselves, you've done the hard work against NC State to get in position to be open on a 3rd down, catch the ball. Or you've done the hard work to get into the red zone, pay it off with a touchdown. Or in a 2-minute offense, you've done the hard work to get to midfield. It's only a 3-point game. You could take the lead going into half if you continue to do what you've done for the better part of 2 quarters. That's execute in those moments. The other play to me, Ira, that was killer last night was the 4th and 2. The throw over the top to Johnny Wilson. I looked at it today on the AT&T Skycast they had on ESPN. There's some free love for those 2 brands. But, there's a little release to the left.
Lawrence Tofield wide open.
I thought so in the live speed, but I wanted to see that view as well today. And, yeah, that it's going to work. You're going to move the chains in that moment. You don't have that kind of wide berth and margin. If you don't execute in these moments as talent deficient as Florida State is in its situation, specifically against Clemson, you're not going to win the football game. And that's the hard part. It's all part of the growing process, though. Like I think for some segment of the fan base and maybe the message board community too, it's almost like 4-0 redefined the expectations and set the bar higher than what preseason expectations were. And so I think for a lot of the fan base, what you've got to do is examine, ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, did I redefine the expectations? Because if you didn't, then the question is, why are you so mad right now? Because they're on pace to achieve the goals that you wanted them to achieve. It's a complex situation, and 3 losses in a row sucks no matter how you slice it. Well, I chuck a bottle cap on the ground too, but but this is where we are.
This is where we are. On the 4th and 2, like to me, and there's a million plays during a season, so you don't want to say, okay, well that was just this huge play, but it was a big play, and it also to me was indicative of kind of some of the mistakes this team makes in terms of situational awareness. It's 4th and 2. You don't need the throw over the middle to Johnny. You just need the 2 yard. You got to get the first down. You've got to move the chains. And if you look at Clemson, when they were in those situations, for the most part, they got the 4 yards when they needed 3 yards. They got the 6 yards when they needed 4 yards. And that's where Florida State's kind of struggling. And we've seen it in other situations. Again, late in the NC State game, you didn't have to have a touchdown there. You just want to get closer. And this isn't all on Jordan. It's this whole team. You have defensively when after they get the long kickoff return, and like you just can't give up a touchdown in one play. Or right before halftime, the fumble. You give up a 30-yard run on the first 40-yard run on the first play. A linebacker just gets in the wrong gap. Those situations, like in a game with 70 defensive snaps, like they're all important, but man, some situations are more important. And Florida State is not playing well in those huge situations. And maybe that is, maybe again, like you said, this is they've put some of the pieces in place, but this has not become a team that's playing smart yet in key situations.
Yeah, and again, I think that's part of the hard part to me last night was running on Clemson. Who saw that coming? I thought it would have to be perimeter passes galore, and that's what it ended up being when Florida State got down by a ton of points in the second half. But for the balance of the first half, you were running the ball effectively on Clemson. They had to play you honest, which is right where you want them to be. The only thing you can't do, and that's what I feel like a lot of this season has been so far, is the only thing you can't do, ... And then you see the only thing that can't happen. And some of that's on the players rat trapping, and some of that is on the coaches. And that's all fair to point to those criticisms. I just think that if you told me, I know if you told me in August 15th, that this guy would be missing and that guy would be missing and this guy would be out for a half, and you point to all these players on Florida State's roster being in and out of the lineup with the lack of depth that I had perceived, 4-3 I would take, but that doesn't excuse away the fact that even with all of that adversity, you don't close out a game on the road like NC State. You can see I'm coming back to that one.
No, you are, and you hit. It resonated with the chat, and I agree with you 100%. And I kind of wrote something along those lines last week in my 3-2-1 about the problem with losing both of those two games, Wake and NC State, was the odds are you're not going to beat Clemson, and if you don't beat Clemson, now you have a 3-game losing streak, and it's 3 games you are in, but 1 or 2 of them you probably should have won. And the NC State game is obviously the most glaring of those two. So that was a squandered opportunity. And that's kind of where this team is right now. And I think what also makes it frustrating if you're a fan is you see plays executed well. You see they can do it.
Yes.
Like a year ago when they went up to Clemson and they literally couldn't run plays. Like they could not run the football. They couldn't get time to throw the football. And if they did, they didn't have receivers to go make the plays. Then you see this team with, they're running the football and Jordan Travis is making some plays and the receivers are making plays. Why can't it happen consistently?
Right.
That, and even against a good defense, that's frustrating. When you show you can do it and then can't do it all the time, I think sometimes that's even more frustrating, for fans.
Yeah, because you'd rather, in a way, if you're going to lose, just make it quick, make it a clean one, rather than this agonizing period of time that, again, the first half, I just felt so good about everything that had happened in the first half, even as they hold Clemson to a field goal 17-14 and they have the ball with a chance to go score and take the lead. That it felt like, I don't want to say Florida State was in control of the game, that's too much, but it felt like it was a fair fight. And here you go. Here's a chance to show growth. And then those 4 minutes, I know they put the graphic on the ESPN broadcast about the 8 or whatever the hell they call it, but it's really the 2 minutes before and the first 2 minutes after.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 minutes of game time.
Yeah, it was. And D-Rob and I talked about that in the second half of the game. It was just, this could not have gone worse. I said to Dominic, I didn't want to have to ask big picture questions in the early third quarter, but these are on deck unless Florida State picks itself up off the mat. But they did it again. And so it's just, I've got a hard time with some of the takes I'm seeing today about it's almost like Florida State back in your hole. You're not ready for prime time. They're a lot closer to prime time than they have been in a long time. Yeah. And so I think that you can't have one without the other. Both things are kind of true here as we hit the bye week. And one thing that was said last night in our Warchant Watch Along broadcast that I really thought was insightful was that's all true for now, but you've got to do well in these final 5 games.
Oh, 100%.
For this to all be kind of okay. Because if you go 2-3 in that stretch and you finish the season at 6-6, then the conversations that some are having right now are completely valid. But we've got an incomplete picture of this season, and I like what I'm seeing so far. It's just this next 5-game stretch is going to be huge, Ira.
Yeah, and I thought, again, I brought it up last night, but Derek McClellan's comments I thought were completely on point, and I'm sure it's things he's hearing from the coaching staff, but they cannot let what happened in these last 3 games affect those next 5 games. Mm-hmm. Because if they play hard and sharp in those last 5 games, they could win them all and go 9-3, or they could win 4 of the 5 and win 8-4. I don't think they're going to finish much less than that. And so then you'd feel like, okay, you might have wins over both your rivals, Florida and Miami. You might have one of those wins on the road. Those are very possible wins right now, if not likely wins right now, if you play well. And that erases all of this nonsense. So, yeah, it's just a weird way the season turned out where you get off to this hot start, then you have this slide. But if you finish strong, it can kind of negate all that. I did want to ask you your thoughts on a couple of the big decisions because again, like everything gets magnified when you lose.
Mhm.
We talked about the 4th and 2, and Jordan does make the right decision there. What do you think about the decision to not go for the field goal there, and then also the fake punt?
Yeah, that was a sting right before I'll answer the former part. That's at the 31-yard line, I want to say it is.
Yeah, it would have been a 48, 49-yard field goal.
Yeah, I go for that all day. And
Yeah.
I think he might even with a good kicker.
Especially if you think that's what I'm saying. Like everybody went immediately to he doesn't have faith in his kicker. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's just it. I think he felt like he had a good call, and he did have a good call.
Yeah.
And
I
it should have been an easy
I
first
think
down.
he thought that you're going to throw it to the flare on the left and not the
Right.
corner over the top. I'm sure they didn't cut to Mike from what I saw in the broadcast right afterwards, but I'm sure he was going, really? Oh, okay. Gene about wanted to puke last night on the postgame show when I said I think he'd do it anyway, even with a good kicker.
Now, if you had their kicker, maybe.
Yeah,
But if you just had a decent kicker, I don't know, man. I might go for it there.
I think that's in his nature in that kind of
Right.
nebulous territory. And, from the 35 to the 30, it's probably go time. Now, the fake punt, I didn't like from the word go. That is a desperate situation that begs for a fake punt. There's no way that Clemson is coming after Florida State in that situation. They're going to be in whatever safe they want to call.
And you could tell that pre-snap. I mean, it's like if somebody in the box may have thought about calling timeout there because it wasn't. I mean, it didn't look like it was an inviting situation.
No, you're correct. And I know they've repped some of that stuff in practice, and I didn't even think it looked that great in practice personally. But you know why? There's a desperate situation in a place called Pasadena, California, about 8 years ago now, and everybody knew that the fake punt was coming. Right. But Carlos Williams had the ball, and Carlos Williams is a really fast human being, still to this day, but more so then. And so even though Auburn knew that something was probably up, given the score and the situation, Florida State just had a better athlete. Carlos Williams was not snapped the ball last night.
Carlos Williams is not walking through that door.
No, he's not. He's not the up man on that punt.
Leroy Butler's not walking through that door.
No, and then they ran a montage of the punt Ruski after, and I'm just thinking, wow, way to spit on Bobby Punt's legacy by running that film after a fake punt. I just didn't like the call in that situation. I'd rather you run an offensive play. If you think it's critical to move the chains, in my mind, I think you just run a traditional offensive play in that moment. I still think you kick the ball away and see what happens, but I didn't like it. How about you? What did you think?
No, I did not like it at all. It was and I get the mindset. I mean, I understand he's trying to create a spark, but it screams a little panicky. Yeah. Especially when it's not like you saw something you could take advantage of, or I don't know, or you just have this wonderful play. But a direct snap from 5 yards out to Wyatt Rector in the and if you go back and watch it, the thing where the there's a couple of defenders on the left side for Clemson point over to the back to the up backs. I went back and watched it. I think they're pointing at the fact that both of the blocking backs were kind of like leaning forward, like it was almost like a tell. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, regardless, no, I didn't love that decision. It wouldn't have, it's probably not going to matter. It's not like your defense was just getting tons of stops. They ended up holding him to a field goal, which was great. But I don't know that it changed the complexion of the game. But again, as we're analyzing, as we're putting together the picture of Mike Norvell and his decisions and moments, and that's what we all are focusing on right now. It was not, I just didn't like the call at all. The 4th and 2, I was okay with again, even if you had a decent kicker, unless you had a great kicker. I would have gone the other way. But again, I think everything's magnified because you lost, and so people are forgetting about all the good things, which there were a ton of good things for you to be in that game. And I don't want to gloss over they're still fighting at the end, because I see what you said exactly. I agree. At some point, that's not enough. That's the baseline. Yeah. But also, it is something.
Yeah, it is. Well, and the way I'd say, or the person I'd look at is Jordan, because we were all, and I think rightfully, critical of some of the, I hate the body language trope because that's a cliche I don't like in general, but it looked like they were not on the same page. Right. I think that's the more important thing is it looked like Mike was seeing one thing and then his quarterback is seeing another. And you never want that to happen with a play caller and a quarterback saying, what about this? What about that? That's not great. And so that led to, I think, dejection to some degree for Jordan on the sidelines at NC State. I didn't see that at all down the stretch last night. So
Right.
is it incremental progress? Is it a parting gift like you get on a game show if you don't win it? Yeah, it is. But it's something to mark the time, because there are 5 more of these things to go, and they'll face adversity again. And I feel like Jordan is in a better place mentally to handle that down the stretch. And look, you were down 20 points, and you had to make a rally. You had a choice in that moment, just like the Wake Forest game at 28-7. What are you going to do? Are you going to cry over the fact that you're down a ton of scores, or are you going to get right back up and try and do something about it? That's good. That's good that this team has that in them. The hard part, Ira, is in this sequence of 7 games for Florida State is, even though they're flawed, and we knew they were, and even though they're not a top 10 team, they came kind of close to being ranked in the top 10 over the course of this first 7 games if a couple of bounces go their way against Wake, NC State, and Clemson. So they're closer to touching a goal that all of us would go, wow, than I thought before the season started. But now they're right back where I think preseason we all thought they would be. So it's just a hard place on a bye week to try and sort all those things out before we get to Georgia Tech at home here in 2 weeks.
What are your theories on why some of the untimely mistakes? Like another one, and I'm not going to harp too much on Micah Pittman because I think he made a lot of really good plays. But it was just weird they let that ball bounce.
Oh my God.
And I mean, it was just a weird. The fact that he's been so good, it was just weird. And then the kickoff return for a touchdown you give up, or not for a touchdown, but a 70-yard kickoff return.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can't imagine there's any way that that's where Ryan was supposed to kick it. It ended up kind of near the hash as opposed to in the corner. The whole coverage unit's going to that corner, and that's usually where they kick it. But instead, it's kind of like near the hash. So it's probably not where it was supposed to be, and it's not very deep. So it's very returnable. It's right to their best player, Shipley. And then you have some weird, not great efforts on the tackle. So it's just like, it's like a bunch of things went wrong, like in a mushroom cloud, to turn into that play. And it's like, I don't know when that stops. Like, when does that stop? When you have just those spurts of just terrible moments, because those are the difference in these games.
I think that's where an improvement in quality of player can help. Sometimes a dude just makes a play, and right. I know that's oversimplified, and maybe it takes away some of the ownership from the guys that are currently on the field. You can make a play; these guys are allowed to. But I think that's where sometimes, like for example, if from Clemson's perspective, 2nd and 12, you have a guy undress Robert Scott and strip sack the ball. That's a play being made in that moment. Otherwise, Clemson fans are going to be pissed off that they might be down at the break if they don't have somebody go and stem the tide. Florida State had gone 93 yards earlier in the half for a touchdown drive off of a bad kickoff return and a hold on that return. And then Florida State was able to run for well over 100 yards in that half. They didn't give up on average more than 70 a game. There was 60 and change a game on the ground.
Yeah.
But a player erases all of that. The next thing you know, another player makes a play in Will Shipley, and they score, and they're up 24-14 at the break. I mean, it's just, that's the kind of stuff where a player can erase all of those bad feelings, and FSU doesn't have that right now. Khalil, I see, had contributed. Thank you, Khalil. And to Director Ben, if you see good questions as well, you can star those, and we can answer those in the final 35, 40 minutes here that we have on Sunday Smash. Did y'all have a problem with how the game was called defensively? I don't personally, but I think I was upset with the execution from certain guys on the blitzes. 180 pounds or not, Kevin Noles is who he's speaking of, make that tackle. What did you think of that call, Sarah?
I didn't look. I mean, my thing is, I did feel like they needed to try to do some things to get DJ moving around and just having to worry a little bit about the pressure, because again, with the injuries you have up front, you're not expecting to get a ton of pressure probably with your front four. I didn't have a huge problem with them trying to take some shots with blitzes, but I don't know. They were never under control. Like whether it was Noles or whether it was Shaheem Brown. I love Shaheem Brown, but he had a couple times where they just came in so out of control, and against a big dude like that can't be the approach, because you're not going to get enough of him to do anything. So even if you get back there, it's not going to do much. I also thought, part of it needs to be situational, because the there was very little chance of him being rattled, I don't think, because the game situation never got into a place where
Yeah.
he would feel a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
Again, we go back to one of the conversations Jeff and I had before when I came on your guys' pregame show was I think back to the Tyler Van Dyke in the Miami game. Well, there was game pressure on him,
Mhm.
and he's on the road, and you're coming after him. This was different. Like Clemson was never really on the ropes in this game. Now they could have been. I thought another key moment in this game, to start to get off topic, but another key moment was you go down and score, you go up 7-0, you force a punt,
Yep.
and then Micah returns it to midfield.
Yep.
Those are the situations, man. You have a chance at home.
Yep.
There's got to be something in your playbook, Mike Norvell. There's got to be something that these guys can execute, and you can make a couple of big plays. If you go up 14-0 there with that crowd, now it's a different situation. Now you got to see DJ throw the ball when he's not comfortable, but instead they have a bust on first down. I think it's tackle for loss, and you're going backwards again, and that kind of thing. But as far as defensively goes, I mean, I think I didn't have a major problem with how they called it, but I just was confused by some of the breakdowns defensively. Again, the touchdown. Now, Zaire Thomas is a true freshman,
Mhm.
but you end up having a miscommunication with him and I guess maybe the linebacker.
There's Lundy.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so they end up with a tight end wide open in the flat for touchdown. The blitz with Noles, it's not even the blitz. The blitz is it's probably not great because I don't know that he's going to do anything to DJ. I mean, DJ is a big dude,
Yeah.
but the way Akeem comes down crashing so hard on the receiver, it's like he's got no doubt in his mind that guy's going to run a hitch because of the blitz, and he's going to be able to, But what if he doesn't? Like he was so out of control that all the guy had to do was just turn upfield, and he had no prayer. That to me is Is that coaching? Is that just a player losing his mind? That's the kind of stuff. There was some of that from an experienced secondary. I thought there were a few too many breakdowns like that.
If I'm not mistaken, Shaheem Brown was on the field shortly after that play. That's what I saw at live speed, and I think it was related to maybe one of the conclusions a coach could draw from the play there, Ira, and maybe I don't know what was taught in practice this week, but all I know is I saw Jamie Robinson and Shaheem Brown at safety shortly after that breakdown for the touchdown. The one thing I'd say, just from the numbers standpoint, and again, the numbers don't tell the whole story. You've got to draw up a game plan based upon what you think puts you in the most successful position. But when I did the breakdown for DJ on the site this week, it said basically two things. One, pressure him, he'll make mistakes. But two, don't blitz him because he doesn't make mistakes against the blitz. His numbers against the blitz were outstanding. So what does that leave you? It only leaves you the option of generating pressure with your front four. Now, Adam Fuller might say, that's great that he doesn't play well under pressure without a blitz, but I need to bring more guys in order to create pressure. So I'm stuck in a chicken and the egg situation. But I would have given a little bit more time personally to, those guys on the edge to try and create something and make something happen rather than force the issue, because I felt like the air was let out of the balloon a little bit with that shot play down the field. It just felt like that was way easier for Clemson to score than it was for FSU in that moment. You think, damn, now they've got to build another long drive against this defense, which Florida State actually ends up doing. But that's not the point. It just, momentum-wise, it feels like a little bit of the air is taken out of the balloon. And then the other thing I'd say about the blitzing in general, they don't seem to be in control a lot anyway, Ira. When these members of the secondary come downhill, Amarian Cooper, Renardo Green were both turned away easily in the first game of the season against LSU. Sometimes the safety blitzes are coming from off the screen on television when the ball is snapped.
They're coming so far away and so slow developing. It's really weird, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a strange. That is. And I've tried to ask him a little bit about it, but yeah, I don't get it. It's
like
a weird.
I know what a delay blitz is, but we don't live in the era of a 4x3 television anymore. We got 16:9 widescreens, and if a dude's not in the shot at all at the snap of the ball, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? So there's some trends there I don't like, but you got to do what you got to do. And Florida State did some novel things against LSU or Wake Forest, and they kind of worked against what the trends would say. So it's a tough one. I know Ben had another question that he wanted to put up. Maybe that's what was underneath. But go ahead, Ben. Was it a positive or negative thing for the recruits that were there? What do you think, Ira? You were in the building. I wasn't.
Yeah, and we already have some stories up on the website. Michael and Austin are out there. We're out there today talking to a bunch of recruits. So if you go to warchant.com, you can see updates on several of the guys that were there, and they all very positive about it. I think the environment the first half was great. The action was great until everything kind of fell apart there in that
Yeah.
little stretch. And I think the fact that the team battled back was a big positive to a lot of the recruits. I don't know. A lot of people are upset because the fans left and because the stadium was empty. And people ask, "Oh, does that mean you're are the recruits going to be mad because the fans didn't really support the team?" I don't know, man. I think most people understand that it's 2022 and it's not. People they can go do stuff. It's not like they can go watch other late games. I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't that upset about the fans. I think it might have been a bad look. People were
Oh, we may have lost Ira for just a moment
concerns
there.
about look from the recruits. Michael is going to have a story on him. He's basically shut things down. Keldrick Falk, a defensive end, their top commitment one of their top commitments so far. Basically said he's shutting down his recruitment. There's nothing. And there was a couple guys, Cedric Baxter, a 5-star running back who was committed to Florida State when he was really young. Then now he's committed to Texas. He came and had nothing but good things to say about it. So I think it was good. It was definitely good for recruiting.
Yeah, if you're a running back, that's a good game to watch Florida State.
Yeah.
You go up and down the field on that group, that Clemson front that was vaunted, and I don't know that they're going to give up 6 yards of carry again the rest of the season. I don't think that's going to happen. Clinton says, "Is Coach Norvell in trouble? I feel like he's building for the future, and even though it's been a tough 3-week stretch, I'm okay with the season overall." Okay, so I agree with your latter sentiment, Clinton. Personally, I don't think we're there yet. Now, again, if you go 2-3 or worse in this stretch to finish the season, then I think, yeah, he'd be in trouble. But I don't envision that happening over the next 5 games. We'll see. But Ira, your thoughts on Coach Norvell and I guess a warm seat of any kind? Maybe that's what Clinton's getting at.
Yeah, no, I don't think unless they collapse. And if they collapse, then that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not expecting that. Like you said earlier, I think we know what this team is now, and I don't think they're going to fold.
Yeah, agreed. I think this team is 2 things. Number one, it's capable of going toe-to-toe with top 15 teams, top 10 teams, top 5 teams in the country, play for play. They're capable of doing that for long stretches of a time in a game, more so than they have been as a program in a lot of years. Then they're also kind of shaky in some situations. And in fact, you should expect them to be shaky in some situations week in and week out until further notice. They are both of those things. That leads to frustration, but they're still on target for what we set out, at least as a fan base and as a media group, what we said the expectation should be improvement this season. They're on target for those.
Let me ask you if it would have been different. Say you had lost the LSU game, but you won the NC State game. Would people be a little calmer right now or no?
Yes, 100% they would.
Right.
The 3 in a row thing is killer, and the manner in which you lost the NC State game is killer. I mean, it's very similar to 2012 when you're up. What was that, 16-0 at the break?
Right, at NC State.
Yeah, at NC State. I mean, it has that feeling of this is all yours for the taking, and you're watching the plays happen. And it's just, I think that again is going to color the discussion until further notice. Maybe if they come out of the break, handle Georgia Tech. I saw Khalil had made a comment earlier tonight where he said, how they come out against Georgia Tech is going to tell me what I need to know about this group. Let's say they handle Georgia Tech, a program that they've had all kinds of problems with no matter how bad the Yellow Jackets are, and then they follow it up with a win against Miami. Maybe those conversations are quelled for a little bit. But right now, I think that's what we have to expect, Ira, over the next couple of weeks as we write and produce content for the site, is that people are there's going to be a stick in their craw.
Well, and Keith Clark's comment in the chat was a good one. He'd be very surprised if they collapsed, especially with Lovett coming back and other players coming off injury. I think that's a great point. I mean, Fabian Lovett is the emotional leader of this team. Even since he's been injured these last 5-6 games, he's the guy when the team, before they go in the locker room, at the end of pregame warmups, they come together as a team. In years past, it's, different Marvin Wilson or different guys who are the guy that does the little pregame talk before they go in the locker room to get the coaches to talk. And that's Fabian Lovett. Even when he's been injured wearing a boot, he's been that guy for this team. Getting him back at practice, I think, could be a nice lift, and they need it. I mean, they're going to need it, especially these next couple of days this week. They are going to practice on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. Then they're going to give some time off over the weekend and then start getting ready for the Georgia Tech game. But I think getting him back in the field, he's a loud guy. I mean, you see him, Tom, to defensive players and offensive players. I think that could be a nice boost. And then there's some other guys as well, I think, who might be getting healthy.
Yeah, and I'll switch over to the offense just quickly here because Jordan Travis, the way he came out this season was on fire, and he put a lot of doubters, to rest within 2 quarters against LSU. I know they didn't score more than 7 points in the first half, but you just see the decisions he was making in that first Power Five game, and you're going, "Whoa, this is different. This is a guy who's totally prepared for the challenge in front of him." And then he validates that with subsequent performances all the way through the first half of the Louisville game. Since then, it's been okay. It hasn't been world on fire, but that also could be clouded by the fact that you're playing three really good teams with good to very good defenses in sequence 1, 2, and 3. What do you think about Jordan and where he is as a player right now? Do you think that there was a little bit of fool's gold in the first 4 games, or do you think that maybe we're prejudiced by the last 3 opponents being much better than the rest of what they're going to see on the schedule down the stretch?
Yeah, look, man, I thought going into this week, I thought part of the problems for him those last 2 weeks were things had gotten to such a high level. They had played so well in that first month. And I think he was affected a little bit by how well they were playing, that when things didn't go well, I thought he started getting frustrated. You could see it with some of the interactions with Norvell and just the way he was playing. It seemed like he was not comfortable in those 2 games. This game, I thought he was much more in control.
Yeah.
I thought he didn't play perfectly. He missed some throws. We've talked about a couple of them as well. But I thought he was in control. He competed. He made some winning plays. I mean, some really winning plays. I mean, there's a play in the second half during the beginning of the comeback. I think it might have been their second touchdown drive, because then they start like they're inside their own 10-yard line. He almost gets sacked. That's like a 90-something yard drive. He almost gets sacked for a safety around the goal line.
Yep.
Makes an incredible play to get out of it. Leaps between 2 guys, gets the first down, gets that drive going, makes some big plays. I thought the throw to Kentron Portier was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean, both of those touchdown throws in the fourth quarter were scramble drill kind of plays, but those are the things he can give you, and he's giving to you again. Like, I thought the last couple weeks, I felt like he was trying to play in the box of the offense and not being a playmaker. And when things weren't working, I thought he was getting frustrated. This, I thought, was the Jordan Travis. I was perfectly fine with Jordan Travis in that game. I thought he gave them a chance to win. Now it's just making some critical decisions in certain situations. But I mean, look, he's still getting better as a quarterback. We'll see what he does after this year. But I mean, I think the things he's learned in the time he's been the starting quarterback, I think you can learn those things as well. Overall, I thought he played well. And most importantly, I didn't see some of the things that bothered me really those last couple of games.
Yeah, the development that he's gone through between last season and this indicates that he can grow a lot in a short period of time. I agree with you there. The things that I would poke in, and he's not a perfect player. So first of all, it's not like you're judging him off of a Heisman-worthy player.
And he fits in well with this team because there's not a lot of perfect players on this team.
Correct. Yeah, he is. He is the embodiment. Like, you got to take the good with the bad. There's some moments you go, wow. And then there's some moments you go, what the hell is that? For example, the first touchdown run. I mean, you make a guy look silly, and that is a world-class athlete on the other side of the ball for Clemson, but there's really nothing there. They do a good job. He makes the correct read to keep it, but now it's one-on-one, mano-a-mano, and he handles business there. The things I didn't like, the 4th and 2, I don't blame him all the way on the strip sack. I mean, he doesn't have to always fumble the ball. I feel like it's a Christian Ponder kind of talking point. You don't always have to fumble the ball if there's a position to fumble the ball. But that's still, you get somebody turned loose. I know you say coaching in that situation.
I put it on both of them. I think I wouldn't have put him in that situation. I also, if you're Jordan Travis, you have to know, man, you don't have a lot of time. And once he saw the pressure, it almost looked like he was trying to tuck it to run. I think he thought he could kind of squeeze through there. And it's like, man, in that situation, just go down. Just go down. Well, you don't need to score there.
And also, I'm conflicted on some of the times he turned his back to the play, and then there's a lineman on the other side. You know that's going to happen with Clemson. But then if he doesn't have that kind of attitude, he won't make the play that you're talking about off the goal line. So you got to take the good with the bad there. The other thing that I think is indefensible and is really tough to swallow is Johnny Wilson has a sizable catch radius. It is catch radius.
Those were not good passes.
And if either one is in position for Johnny to make the play, he's going to catch the touchdown in that moment.
If you're throwing those to Micah Pittman, maybe that's how you throw them.
Right.
But you're throwing to Johnny Wilson, man, just throw them up high. They don't have to be that deep. Yeah,
And I know,
those were bad throws.
and the legacy of that drive is that you get a short field. Should have been
Yeah.
shorter with Micah Pittman. I didn't really go into that, but oh my God, I about lost it on the end game, because that's something that, we all have our little things, Ira, that get under our skin about a football game, and Corey and I share that one. The catch the ball thing. We have the shortest fuses in the world. And I turned it over to Dominic, who returned punts.
Yes,
At this level, I said, "I'm gonna shut up. You tell me." And he said, "Oh, this is inexcusable." He said, that the ball is coming out quickly and it should land at the 45-yard line, like their 45-yard line. And that's exactly where the damn thing landed. So it's not just fans or media members getting pissed. Somebody who actually did this at the collegiate level at Florida State said that's ridiculous.
And it was crazy because he's been so good. Like I'm saying, like it's not a again, like you came to expect it with some of the guys they had back there last year. I would not expect it from Micah.
Yeah, and he had made the good return earlier in the game. And, that's a killer. We're moving all over the place here in the situations. But that's what happens when you lose 3 games in a row. You pick little segments where you say, if you did this better, you might actually have been 2-1 in the stretch, or at least 1-2. That's what Florida State has to contend with from a psyche standpoint, Ira, over the next couple of weeks. You had a first glimpse of at least some of the players and Coach Norvell down there. They now do in-person interviews, which is great to get a sense of how the guys are doing. They've responded to worse than this. They were 0-4 last year and in a dogfight against Syracuse, and they didn't quit then. But how do you feel about their psyche now? They've got a little bit of time to think about what has just happened before they hit the field again. What do you think?
Look, man, I would not expect them to be too adversely affected by that game in general. But the way they talked after the game, I was impressed by it. And I know, and sometimes we'll talk about this, like what do the words mean when you interview people after a game, like what they said, what does it really mean much? Does it not mean much? I thought the way they talked, and I felt the same way last week after the NC State game. I just feel like this is a team that takes responsibility for what they do poorly and when they make mistakes, and that they are focused completely on themselves and not blaming everybody else and not blaming the coaches. I love the fact that Derek McLennan sat in that room and used the word execute 10 times. I don't think he was doing it just to make us feel good or make the coaches feel good. I think they feel like, man, we can't have some of the busts we had in that game. You can't, that's not play calls. That's somebody not doing their job. So I think from all that evidence, plus the way they played in the fourth quarter, I think they'll come back. Now, the question is, to me, it's how they come out in that next game in terms of not getting on their heat. I guess my thing with that Georgia Tech game is Georgia Tech's probably going to be coming in after 3 straight wins. So they're as high as that program has been in years. I mean, and they've got an interim coaching staff, so they're all playing together. When you fire a coach early in the season, one of 2 things happens. Either everything falls apart, or they rally around each other and rally around that interim coach. Well, that's what's happened. So now that's a different dynamic you didn't know you were going to get with Georgia Tech when they come in here. Then you throw in the whole Jeff Sims thing, the fact that he committed to Florida State. I'm sure he still has some feelings towards Norvell. So you're going to get a great shot from Georgia Tech. And I think it's important in that game to not – there's no doubt in my mind Florida State's a better team right now.
Right.
But it's not giving them the momentum and then creating a situation where now you're feeling like you've got pressure. So I think it's going to be really important that they come into that game with a really good mindset, because I don't think it's a game because of those factors. It's not a game where you could just muddle through it and then put them away whenever you want to. Like, they're going to need to be sharp early in that game, I think.
Yeah, for me, I look at the schedule and I say it's a nice ramp up to have Georgia Tech before you play Miami off of the bye. Like, that's a nice sequence, but they can't think like that, because you're absolutely right. Georgia Tech has, they went on the road. They won a game at Pitt. I don't know how good Pitt is, but they're better than Georgia Tech. I know that much. And they went there and they took it. In the second half, they finished that game strong. And Sims can drive you nuts too. I mean, he's a guy who is extremely mobile. And you all know how those situations go. It's 3rd and 7. You can't get a guy to the ground. They get a first down. All right. Does everybody start pointing at each other, or do you play the next play? They're going to be challenged in that way when they play Georgia Tech. A couple of housekeeping notes for everybody who has joined us in the last 15 minutes of Sunday Smash. First of all, thank you for being here, to the 400 plus of you. Throw a thumbs up underneath this video. Hit the like button if you're on YouTube. We really do appreciate when you do that. It helps us find more FSU fans, and we're all in need of a good therapy session right now. And if you like little things that can help you along with therapy, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits has brought this program to you tonight. They're the sponsor of the program. If you're in the state of Florida, you know where your ABC is. Make sure to hit them up and be prepared for the bye week, as we can all sit back for a week now and take in some other college football, take stock of what we've all seen here through 7 games, and then get ready for what is going to be a ferocious final 5 games. If you haven't signed up for warchant.com yet, head to Warchant right now. It's only $10 to get you all set through August 31st of next year. This is a critical time in the Mike Norvell era, Ira, and we're going to be talking about that over the next couple of weeks at Warchant. But we also have other stuff coming up as well. It's almost basketball season, and I know we got something about baseball as well coming up too.
Yeah, man. Basketball, they've already been practicing. Their season opens the beginning of next month. So I went over there, and I've got a story coming about Matthew Cleveland and some of the guys that are coming back from last year's team. And then also baseball, they're actually going to have a scrimmage this week, and we're going to interview Link Jarrett later this week. And I actually just interviewed the pitching coach, Chuck Ristano, who came from Notre Dame with him, and we'll have that on the site as well. Plus a lot of recruiting stuff. Like we said, Michael and Austin were over there. They've got recruiting stuff coming, and we're going to have some mid-season stuff. Even though FSU is technically past the mid-season, it's 7-5. We're going to use this week as a good opportunity to do a lot of mid-season reflecting on the kind of where this team is and what they can do going forward.
So with that, okay, let's do a little workshop on the fly, and then we can just have the closed caption do the stenographer stuff for us. And we're halfway home on a couple of articles, Ira. If you had to nominate somebody that you think is a truly pleasant surprise through the first 7 games this season, is there somebody that immediately jumps to mind, or are there a couple of guys?
I guess going back to preseason or going back to like the spring, or because we started to see some things in the preseason.
Yeah, probably before fall camp. So before you saw these guys. Yeah, how about that? Who has jumped out to you?
I'll say Lawrence Toafili is a big one. I really could not have been more impressed by him the last couple of weeks. I think he's running. You're seeing him run between the tackles so much harder and making decisive cuts in some of the stretch plays that I hadn't seen before. And so you knew he had speed in the open field, but he looks like he's playing really, really well. And then obviously, I think Johnny Wilson this last game, those couple of fades notwithstanding, which weren't really his fault anyway. That to me, offensively, I didn't know coming into preseason camp that he would be as dominant as he is.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, and then defensively, I don't know if anybody really defensively. I'll be honest, man. I'm a little discouraged right now by the secondary. I thought the secondary would be better. I thought the safeties would be. I thought this would be maybe, and not to run down Jamie. Certainly, I think he's been fine, but. I don't think he's making plays like an All-American, and Akeem hasn't been as good as I expected. So,
yeah, that's a group I think that'll be very interesting in the second half of the year. And I get that we threw 7 of 12, but what does the personnel look like coming off of the bye week? Who are your 2 safeties? Shaheem Brown is at least worth consideration. That play he makes on, I think it was 3rd down, where he gets off of a block and makes a tackle behind the line to gain, is a huge play in a moment where the game it's not decided yet. But that's the kind of thing that you want to see. Those are the plays that a guy like Shaheem Brown or Jamie Robinson or Akeem Dent has to make, not miss tackles left and right. So I wonder if moments like that will score him some more time at corner as well. Azaria Thomas got some run in this game. There was a coverage bust for a touchdown, but that's going to happen with a freshman. Does he get more time in the second half of the season? Some people had put in the chat, Patrick Payton and Joshua Farmer. I think for me, at least, you had been talking up Payton for a while. Yeah. I was kind of believe it when I see it. Well, I believe it now. Patrick Payton is going to be a player for Florida State, and he was a pleasant surprise to me.
Yeah, he is. He is going to be. And Khalil mentioned that Duke has been a letdown. Yeah, those 2 other guys in the secondary. Marion Cooper and Kevin Noles, I thought we were going to be a lot better after their freshman years than what we've seen so far. Kevin, I think, was, according to PFF, was credited with 4 missed tackles. And that he had 2 tackles and 4 missed tackles. And then Amarian, I looked up, and we're assuming Duke Cooper's hurt. We're assuming there's something going on there physically. But on the season now, he's been targeted 17 times and has given up 15 completions. It's hard to even fathom, because even on air, either something's going to go wrong. Guy's going to drop balls or quarterback's going to make. So he just has not been effective at all. He didn't play a whole lot this past game, and he gave up a couple 19-yard pass. So that's secondary, man. Like Renardo Green's probably been a positive surprise. I think he's been the best maybe of that group consistently. And then Zaria Thomas has a lot of potential. Jarian Jones didn't have any problems. I didn't see any major problems from him
Yep.
the other night. But that group overall, that group I think has been pretty disappointing for me based on what I thought. I thought that secondary would be really good.
What's interesting, yeah, it's a tough discussion to have because last year you have to laud the development in season of the defensive back group because they were awful for the first 4.5 games of the season, and then they found their sea legs, and a true freshman in Duke Cooper emerges out of nowhere and becomes a stud player for you, and the safety play from Akeem Denton, Jamie Robinson was outstanding in November. So the coaching staff, Fuller, and position coaches alike, they get credit for development in season and what that says. But they've regressed, unless they're all hurt, they've regressed this year. And that's an alarming thing to watch for the second half. Maybe some young bodies can help them for a second consecutive year, but you would have thought that they would either be the same or get better year over year as a secondary. They've gotten worse.
Right. And again, like last year they had Jermaine Johnson up front, so that probably affected it. Although this team has generated pressure. And you can look at the stats and say this team has been good on pass defense coming into this week. I mean, they had a pretty good pass defense numbers, but I think it's largely because of the way they play. They're playing so soft that teams are getting opportunities. They're not going to get beat deep. That's why they haven't given up a lot of long pass plays this season, because they do play kind of softer coverage, keep things in front of them, but they're not making any plays. Like I just feel like they're not breaking enough passes. They're not making enough game-changing plays. Like if you're going to give up stuff underneath, you also have to make plays, and you're just not seeing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of downhill to November last year, Ira. Whether it was hits over the middle of the field and being an enforcer, or making plays on the ball and attacking the ball. I mean, when does this group really attack the ball all that often? The best chance that they've had to come away with an interception outside of the Jamie fourth down play, but that's kind of a broken play, was Greedy Vance. It was a Greedy Vance play against Wake Forest, and it's bad that I only have one play that immediately comes to mind. There should be 7 or 8 over a 3-game span, and that's certainly concerning.
I think Kevin had the one against LSU where he comes off his guy at the end to make that play, but there just haven't been a lot of them.
No, I agree. It's just when you can count them on your hand, that's a problem, because I felt like for the last 5 games of last year, you had a lot of moments where you go, geez, look at these guys. They're intimidating. This crew is intimidating. They'll get up and hit you, and that's just kind of not been the case this year. To circle back real quick to Lawrence Toafili, we had a question last night in the postgame show, and it underscores exactly what you're talking about. We had a caller ask, why isn't Trey Benson running the ball in short yardage situations? Because Toafili's more decisive. He may be smaller, but Lawrence is making a choice to be tough. And it's not just about running on 3rd and short and picking up a first down or short yardage or goal line situations, but he also makes tough catches over the middle. He's done that a bunch this year, which is why that 4th and 2 really kind of irked me even more. Is it's not a scat back that's being targeted or that's running that route to the flat. It's a dude who's proven that he'll make a catch through contact and fight and bounce forward and fall forward when you need an extra 6 inches to a couple of feet. He'll do that for you. Lawrence has been a bit of a revelation this year, Ira, because last year he was benched, simply put, for trying to bounce. And this year he's not doing that. He understands what the situation calls for.
I mean, I think you go back to that. I was thinking about during this game. I was thinking about the Jacksonville State game and some of the runs he had in the second half of that game, where it's like, man, you have to just get the 3 yards or get the 4 yards. You can't bounce everything. And he's come a long, long way. And I also love, again, like watch his interviews. I mean, he's a guy that's passionate. He's stronger now. I mean, I like him a lot. I think, again, and Trey also, I do think he might have been limited injury wise because they might have had him on a snap count because they also didn't have him returning kicks. And you pointed out that I guess on the TV broadcast, Coach Norvell won't ever talk about injuries with us, but apparently let them know that he was a little banged up last week and was a little bit limited. So I think that might have been part of it too.
Yeah, a minor correction, but it was on the radio broadcast, the local radio. But still, he did say that he was banged up earlier in the week. I said, oh, so I could talk about that now. It's like, magic, presto. And that's true. Because the big tell, Ira, I agree, is at kick returns. And what's kind of hurtful, and this is just a minor thing that I pick at, it's kind of hurtful. Will Shipley's the guy who returns the kick to start the second half. They've got a lot of dynamic players that can do that. Is Sam McCall really the most dynamic guy that they can have with the ball in his hands? It's no knock against Sam. He could be a wonderful player in the next couple of years, but I don't think it's a coincidence that when Benson gets a crack at it against Boston College, it's a house call. You look at that disparity of Clemson is putting their best player in a position and he makes a splash play. And McCall, in terms of proof of concept so far in his career, is maybe 20th, 25th in terms of skill position players for Florida State. That's a bit of a toughie.
You wonder if that's an overall coaching thing where highly decorated freshman, one of two highly decorated freshman cornerbacks, one of them's getting on the field a lot of corner, the other one's not. Let's find a way to get him on the field. Man, I'm just guessing. I don't know if that's the case or not, but maybe it's a standpoint just trying to keep him engaged and keep him involved.
Final thoughts in just a moment, but once again, folks, the promo, we've got Wake Up Warchant coming up in the morning. You shouldn't expect press conferences on a Monday from Florida State. They're not going to happen. It's a bye week. We will have availability to go to football practice on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, so look for coverage from warchant.com and Warchant TV from Tuesday and Wednesday, but we'll have things covered with Wake Up Warchant first thing in the morning, the Jeff Cameron Show 1 to 3, and then we've got Seminole headlines in the JCS Tuesday and then Wednesday throughout the rest of the week. It's a big sequence now. Florida State has to get on the mend from a health standpoint and then get ready to go for a 5-game stretch, because now you let one slip away a couple of weeks ago. You got to win 4 out of 5 of these things, at least in my mind. We'll see what happens. It looks like the chat tonight has been fairly measured compared to last night too. A lot of people who are saying they can see the improvement. I hope you guys can, because I certainly am seeing huge improvement. Ira, your final thoughts as we get set for what is going to be a key off week for Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that this is going to be there should be as much anticipation about these next 5 games as there was for this one game. Yeah. I know it would have been great if you had beat Clemson, and it would have been awesome, and it would have been a huge signature win. But man, these 5 games are much more important because, again, you've got your 2 rivals, you've got 3 other games that you have a very good chance of winning. Syracuse is having a dream season. If you can go up there and win that game, it would be a nice win on paper when you didn't expect that to be the case. So man, I just think I don't think these players are going to back down now or fold. I think the fan base should stay engaged because these next 5 games could turn this into the season you were hoping it was going to be.
Well, and they could define the program or the tenure of Mike Norvell one way or the other. If you come out here swinging and you show that what you're capable of for stretches of time in all of these games is what you actually are, then this could be a really fun end of the month of October and into November for Florida State. But they've got some work to do. So for all of that, and thank you to everybody who has commented in the chat. We want to thank Joel Davis along with Khalil. And let's see, who else should we thank? EMG. Thank you for your question. Clinton, thank you for your contribution as well.
And everybody else.
And everybody else who advanced the discussion. That's why we're here, because you guys want to talk about it. He's Ira Schofel. My name is Tom Lang, and we'll see what happens, folks, over these next couple of weeks. Very important time for Florida State football, and we thank you for joining us on Sunday Smash to go through the therapy session. See, don't you feel better? We'll talk to you next time right here on Warchant TV, and once again, thanks to Director Ben behind the scenes. Good night, everybody.